Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, TheRumpledOne, coming to you Tuesday, April the 6th, the year's 2021. Let's talk trading. Highs and lows, part two with Walmal. And just one of the things I want to remind you is these videos are for educational purposes only. Your results may differ from mine and from Walmal's. Yesterday, I was talking about highs and lows and thinking about that in terms of these order blocks that seem to be all the rage out there in YouTube land and FOREX land. But I think I've watched about 6 or 7 different people try to explain order blocks, and I've read documents, and it just seems way too subjective. It's like the trend. Um, you know, you look at it on one chart, it's one place. You look at it on another chart, it's a different trend. And the same is true with these order blocks. Um, but, a high or low is a high or low. The daily high is the daily high. It doesn't matter what chart you look at. So that's why I went through and was showing people how to use highs and lows. So I know Walmart likes to look left, and sometimes I know you look at the highs and lows. So maybe you can explain to the boys and girls and non-binary traders out there what you're looking at in terms of highs and lows.
Sure. I mean, I do put on my chart these order blocks because that's exactly what you said. Everybody's talking about it, so you don't want to sound or seem ignorant. So you want to know what people are talking about. Hey, maybe there is something out there that can go and aid in my trading, and I certainly also have the imbalance, what you call the imbalance zones, with that new indicator that you just released for the donationals. I've got that on my chart again for the same reason, and I do use them to a certain extent, but the one thing is, I'm using it the way you defined it, and what really was, I guess, concerning for me, whatever, is that you go out to these people who are talking about order blocks, and whether it be out on the forums or whether it be in YouTube land or wherever, and it's sort of like people are defining order blocks differently from each other, and so that to me is sort of like, well, that's a problem, and I have a challenge with that, and I'm not quite sure how do I go and trade something if everybody is, or there's not a consensus of thought as to what an actual order block is, or what imbalance zones, everybody has a consensus on that, but the order blocks is where there's really not a consensus out there, and what makes an order block, and what says that it's not an order block, because that's really what it comes down to, is like, okay, you pick that order block over there. Well, what about these other 3 order blocks that are right here? Why aren't you using those ones? What invalidated them? And usually the person who's talking has a reason why they invalidated. But the problem is, you can find, even on the same chart sometimes, somebody else talking about it, and they don't go and invalidate it. And that's what my concern is. I like to have things that are, that don't move around on me, don't mess around on me, and so that's my one concern on it, But I say this to you all the time. I always want to go and look left, and I've said it on videos, I don't know how many times. I always want to go and look left. What am I looking left at? And it gets into that idea of, support and resistance. And I know that, for longest of times, that was the end all to all things. You trade off of support and resistance. And the problem with support and resistance is very similar. People define support and resistance differently from each other. And so what I've done is I'll go and look left, and I'll say, I'm moving into what looks like to me an area of interest, an area where there's a concern there, something may happen here, and because I know some people will go and call this area an area of resistance, or some people will call this an area of support, and now I've just added the additional piece to that puzzle. Well, some people are going to call this an order block, or some people are going to call this an imbalance bar or imbalance zone, and so I now put that into my little checklist when I look left. Okay, so for instance, right now, if I was going short, where would I be looking to go to? Well, on my chart, I'd be looking to go down, maybe down to, maybe down to 40. Why? Because we, somewhere between 35 and 40. Why? Because, that's where we've had problems in the past, where it's rejected out of that area, a couple of times, even today, a couple of times. And so they would tell me that's an area that pay attention to when price starts getting into that area. And it's just a question of, looking around. It's not a reason to take a trade. It's more of an area that, I need to know pay attention to what's going on, because something may happen in that area that may affect a trade that I'm already in, or affect a trade that I'm looking to get into.
Well,
hopefully that makes some sense.
Yeah. Okay. Well, bringing it back though to the highs and lows. So you usually look at the 5-minute or 1-minute chart. I forget now.
I look at both. I go back and forth between 1 and 5. I trade off the 1-minute chart, but I'm always looking at the 5-minute chart. And the reason why is because I put a little bit more significance on the 5-minute chart, even though really, price is price. But the reason why I do that is because, that 5-minute chart is, each completed candle is a summation of 5 1-minute charts. So it gives me a better indication, I think, sometimes as to where price has been. Not necessarily where price is going, but where price has been. So it gives me a better idea about that. So I'll go back and forth between the two. But I also go and look at the 1-hour chart for the same reason. I don't like, and obviously, if anybody's followed the Walmal method, I do not trade against the 1-hour candle. Or at least I try not to trade against the 1-hour candle. And it's just because, hey, there's a lot of consolidation that's happening there in terms of when we go and sum up all the buys and all the sells, and if my candle is really deep red, well, that tells me that, hey, there's a lot of emphasis going to the south. But at the same time, if I'm like in the last 10, 15 minutes of the hour, I also know the pound dollar. And because I know the pound dollar, I know that it usually will come back and try to cover back some of that. Maybe not all of it, and certainly not all of it, but maybe a little bit of it in the last 15 minutes or so. So if I get a sell, if let's say that was a red candle and I get a buy signal, well, I may be willing to take that, but also, be cautious because it's a deep red candle.
Yeah. So I've got the Walmal chart up. I'm looking at the H1, and when you look left, you mentioned support and resistance, and we were talking about highs and lows, and you can see yesterday where there was a little congestion for about 2-3 hours here, and what happened? Price came down and went through it. Now it came back up, and once again, somebody would say this support has now turned into resistance, because we haven't had a close over 38.54 in the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours on the H1 chart.
Right, and so I would take that in consideration, because that high, for whatever reason, that's got some significance there. I don't know what it's causing that. Some people don't have all types of, ideas of what's actually causing it. But I'm going to be honest with you. The ideas of what's causing it doesn't really concern me nearly as much as recognizing, hey, there's a problem in this area that, we've had an issue. So, for instance, for me right now, I would go and, looking at that hourly chart, I'd say looking at, from 58 all the way down to maybe somewhere around, I'd say maybe somewhere around down to 48, that entire 10-pip range there. There's been, we don't have any closes in that area. The price has gone into it several times, but for whatever reason, they can't close in that area. So that tells me that for whatever reason, these buyers are trying to come up. You see those buyers trying to come up, but whenever they get into that area, they don't allow it to close there. And so that just tells me, do I really want to go and take a trade or take a long at 48? Sure, I'll take a trade there. The Walmal line for this hour is at the 50 line. Will I take a trade there? Sure, but I also know that, hey, we've had a lot of problems in that area, so maybe I don't look for my full 10 pips, and just, hey, as soon as price gets up in that area, I'm profitable in that area, and it looks like it's going to come back down on me. You know what? It's probably time to get out, and just because of what history has told me. And so, history is a great learning tool. It's that old expression that if we don't know our history, it's bound to go and take us out. I forget what the actual expression is, but
if you don't, history's going to repeat itself. Yeah,
Exactly.
and what's kind of interesting though, I put up the chart that has the order block bars and the order blocks and the imbalances. So for those of you with the donationals, here I will show you the indicator list of this template, which really I didn't even name the templates. I just put it up here just for educational purposes. But you can see here the order block boys they put in an order block here. Price shot all the way up, and it came back down today and took out this order block from yesterday. But when I look at the chart, I can see right here when this candle, this big white candle, bull candle, it created an imbalance. And right now we're stuck in that old imbalance. So we've already covered it. That's why it's not showing on the chart because it's been covered. But what this is telling me is that the buyers could be loading up in this zone, and when it shoots through, it's going to probably take out all of these bearish imbalances up above, because the low of the right now, this bearish imbalance on H1 is 138.58, and 1 hour ago, and then let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours ago, price touched the edge of it and rejected off to the south. So there's definitely a fight going on in this area. You've got a bunch of buyers in this area here, and then you've got a bunch of sellers, in this area. So that's probably why price is, I guess that's a way to explain why price is stuck in this area right now. But the problem with those is that we're making up stories, okay? Well, when we do that. And that's what you have to understand, traders out there, is that, we're making this stuff up because we're trying to explain something that involves, hundreds, if not thousands of traders. And there's no way you can explain that. Do you agree?
Yeah, no. Oh, yeah, I would. Now, I know this, the order block people would go and say, well, the thing is, we as traders, we can't move price, as a bunch of traders, as a bunch of retail traders. We can't do that. The only people who can move price in a big direction would be institutions, because they got the money to go and do that. Well, there's some truth to that, but also, you got to also understand that, if an institution is going to go in, they're not going to just go in and dump. Let's say they want to go buy right here. They're not just going to go in and instantaneously dump in, 1,000 lots, or 2,000 lots. They can't do it. One, because there's nobody to take the other side of the trade. That's the first problem. And then and the second thing is they want to get the best price that they can. So what are they going to do? They'll go and put in a little. They'll let price go and settle down. They'll go and put a little more in to let price settle down. And that's how they'll go and do it. And they'll do it algorithmically. And so we need to understand that part of the equation as well.
Well, the one thing is, they're not going to do it on our brokers. That's the one thing we have to understand. They're going to do it on institutional brokers that wouldn't even play around with our little, 3, 4, 5, and even 6-figure accounts. You got to be a big boy to get in there. You got to have like 8, 9, 10 digits in your account.
Right, exactly. So what I see is that there is move. Obviously, the institutions move the market. There's no question about it. Okay, but at the same time, I don't know if I can necessarily pick out now. What I do like about the idea of having a story behind the order blocks, and this is sort of answering your question from before, is that we as people like to have a way that we can explain things. Now, if you can go and find a way to explain what's happening and it's repeatable, then there's nothing wrong with that. The story may be true, it may not be true, I don't know. But the thing is, if it helps you as a trader go and be able to wrap your arms around what you're actually seeing, then it's okay. And then that may actually help you out in being able to go and say, hey, this is a place where I should get in. This is a place where I should get out. And that's great if you're able to go and take advantage of that.
Yeah, and you know what? It's the fastest 15 minutes in trading is up once again. So we'll come back and revisit high and low probably another day or two this week. So, fellow traders, I hope that helps. And just remember, it's not what you trade, It's how you trade it. So go out there and drain the banks. This is the Rumpled One, over and out.